set draw.
All right, number 10 for Roll for Mastery. And we're going to talk about character death and TPK and so on. So, um, I'm Keith, and I am a DM, a Dungeon Master for First Edition. Julie, by my side here on the screen, is a 5th Edition Dungeon Master. Very different in the games themselves between First and 5th Edition. 50 years difference, but dramatic change over those 5 decades, and how the game has evolved. So we have very different, well, it's not as a result of that, but we have slightly different play styles as DMs. But the game itself has evolved quite a bit, as to how it kind of presents itself. So we get very different perspectives on things, which I think is helpful for both of us, and to share our experiences with each other. And while sometimes Julie is the voice here of our little recording, sometimes I am as well. If she gets me going and I just start going off on a tangent, but just like Julie, I get excited, I get enthusiastic. So it all depends how the conversation goes. But um, sometimes when I speak a lot, I feel like I speak with such great authority, like I know shit, and I don't. But I'm confident, so I come across that way, like I know what the hell I'm talking about, and
Me too.
I just keep
Okay.
talking and talking and talking. But don't be fooled. When Julie talks, I listen, and she teaches me shit too. I just don't always say it.
I do that sometimes, like at work. I'll be like talking about something, and someone will be like, "Wait," and then I'm like, "What?" And then they're like, "Yeah, that's not," and I'm like, "Oh crap, sorry, I'm an idiot.
No,
Oh, sorry, I'm stupid."
apparently I come across as very believable because I speak with such enthusiasm or such confidence. So,
People want to believe you. Yeah, I have the same effect.
all right, Julie. So we're doing character death and TPKs and such like that, and what happens when a character dies, and how do you bring the player back in, and all that stuff. So, what, how often or how much have you had to deal with that?
And so I was telling you this before we started recording. I've only ever TPK'd one time. It was a one shot, and they were fighting. It was like a really cute like masquerade party, and the players were trying to figure out what was going on in town, and they got invited to a masquerade, and then they found out the masquerade was being held by a demon. And they were all being cursed with their masquerade masks, which is just part of the campaign. But, they had to fight the demon at the very end. It was a demon and he had a vulture friend, but it was like a rock, I think, or like the giant vultures of
Yeah,
Vrock,
yep,
VROCK,
yep.
the giant like walking vultures. And so it was just a giant vulture in him. And so I accidentally looked at his stat block, and his stat block said, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was AC +9 because of he had like infernal strength or infernal fortitude or whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. So his AC is 19. And it was like a level 4 party, and his AC was 19. And I just murdered everyone. It took a long time, but I murdered everyone. And then one of my players was like, "Are you doing something wrong?" And I'm like, "Why? What do you mean?" He's like, "We haven't hit him at all." And I was like, "Yeah, he has like big AC." And he's like, read me the thing, please." He's like, "I won't go behind your screen, but can you read the thing?" And I read the thing, and he's like, "You're so silly." And I was like, "Why?" You double added the AC, so he had double the AC instead of just what he was supposed to have. And I was like, "Oh well, you guys died." He was like, "Yeah, we died."
Well, at least that happened in a one shot where, like, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but, like, it kind of doesn't matter because it's just one thing and you're done anyway. So
In my
in a
big
sense, it
girl
doesn't matter.
campaign in Strahd, I have actually been pushing my campaigns, my combat experiences farther than I'm supposed to intentionally to try and hurt my players a little bit more because they keep getting away with shit scot free. So I keep having like one or two players that have no damage on them, or one or two players who handle the entire thing, and then they get really hurt. Hurt. They don't even go down. They just get hurt. And then everybody else is fine. So I'm trying to like the last combat we did before we left yesterday, it was 1d6 dire wolves, and I said, "Nah, fuck that." did 2d6 dire wolves, and it's 5, so I didn't even roll that high. But I think 5 bear-sized wolves is going to give them a really big problem. I think actually I don't think it's going to, because we went through most of it, and one of my players is a druid and they befriended the wolves. I'm gonna have to like curse my own wolves to make them not
So I've only had
charmable.
one TPK, and technically it wasn't a TPK, 4 out of the 6. And that was recently here, the past couple weeks, running Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. And as we were discussing off camera, and as I was discussing with the players, and we've chatted about it, mistakes were made on both sides of the screen. Like the players made some mistakes. They thought they had equipment they didn't have. They had split the party at one point, which is not so much a mistake, it's just a poor decision. They had 2 or 3 characters that were sub-zero hit points and essentially bleeding out, and those who were conscious said, "Oh, no, 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 we're going to go look for the captain of the ship instead," and just left them bleeding out. Yeah, so mistakes were made. On my side, the DM side, the 2 mistakes I can say that I made, and normally I don't admit this out, well, not that I don't admit it out loud. I wouldn't discuss it openly as we are on a YouTube channel here, but because there are some things that are always kept secret, right? Like you never, as a DM, you never want to go back and tell the party what they missed. Oh, you missed this great treasure over here had you only gone there, right? You don't want to tell them that. There's no need.
No, yeah,
There's
because
no
then they're
need
gonna
to, right?
hyper
And just
focus.
like there's no
Yeah.
need for me to really discuss with the players, oh, this is in detail how I screwed up, and perhaps you would have lived had I not done that. Because expectations, right? Managing expectations. So, now the 2 mistakes I made was um, the number of bad guys, number of minions, in parts because this module, the way it's written for 1E modules is vastly different than the 5E. So if you're familiar with 5e modules, it's nothing like this in 1e. It's all of 35 pages, and in this particular one, it said, here are the 8 bad guys, and it doesn't tell you where they are on the ship.
Oh, excuse me.
Because,
I think we talked about that before. You showed me a couple pages when we were talking about DM organization,
hmm
and you and I talked about how vastly different it is. Strahd's 300 pages, 3.5, and it goes over every fucking thing. Of course, it is a whole valley. It's a giant valley with like 8 or 9 different locations you get to go to, but your campaign wouldn't have done that.
no, no, not at all. I mean,
No.
and it didn't even, all it gave me was the town, the name of the town. It didn't even have a map for the town, or it wasn't fleshed out at all. But where I'm going with
Yeah.
that is that it told me there were 8 pirates on the ship. And it didn't tell me where they were, and it kind of makes sense because they're active, they're moving around, they're working the ship, they're not stationary, right? There were
Is
a
it
couple bad guys
a
that were
three
assigned
player?
to a couple rooms, but other than that, they're moving all around, and I lost track of how many, and I just like kept hitting them and hitting them with more of these little minions before the big bad, the boss fight, which was like it was a trio, like the captain, the first mate, and
First
the
man.
magic user guy, right? So
Yeah.
that was one mistake I made. So I over weakened them in a sense. Well, they were getting bad die rolls anyway. And then the other mistake I made was when it came down to the spellcaster who had hit him a few times, then they got into melee with the spellcaster and they got a couple decent hits after the spellcaster charmed one of the party members. And I
Mm.
said, well, he just charmed them this past round. Let's keep things a little interesting. So instead of killing the spellcaster, I'm going to put him at 1 hit point, just for like one more round, just to kind of see what happens with that charmed character. Because all they have to do is friggin' breathe on the guy and he's going to die.
Yeah.
And they missed. And they
Oh
missed.
no.
And they
Oh
missed.
no. Oh
Oh
no.
my God. Like, I can't like undo that at this point. I can't just say, oh, yep, you hit. Oh, yep, he just. So it did, yeah. So those are my 2 mistakes, so to speak. But it wasn't technically a TPK because one of the characters was charmed, didn't die. 4 died, and the 6th one, the last one, said, "Holy shit, I'm saving my own life," and dives off the ship. So now
To which he'll die
I've
anyway.
used that hey, okay, she made it back to shore. She's kind of continuing the campaign for them, so to speak. Not so much the character, but the storyline it makes for a better transition into the next module, which still takes place in Saltmarsh.
Depends on how far out in the ocean they were. I mean, somebody careening off the side of a boat, an older boat, you would survive. A newer boat, you would have gotten eaten by the mechanism, the propeller, the engine. But like an older boat, you can at least survive a little bit. But then you're stuck in the middle of the ocean with nothing. I guess she's like what you always say, like, oh, you're a James Bond, you're a MacGyver, you're a jack of all trades, you know how to do this shit. So maybe she like did a little bit of star charting and she was able to careen herself back
Well,
to
right.
shore,
So
but
in terms of
still
distance,
floating in the ocean.
they were like a 30-minute rowboat away from shore. So not super far.
Paddling by herself is still gonna take like a
A-
day.
And she had no armor because she was a magic user, so she didn't have weight.
Oh, well, okay.
But anyway,
So,
so
eh.
so not so much as a player character because we're past that now. Players rolled up new
Oh,
characters, but that character can now potentially be an NPC, and had provided some information to the town as to what had happened and so on, and provided a map. A map survived the salt water and so on and so forth. So those are the two mistakes I made in my almost kind of sort of TPK. So
is there a way where you could have been like, the boat hits a big wave and the guy who gets charmed gets hit in the head really hard, and maybe his charm, you would have given a dice roll to see if the
well,
charm
no,
went away?
because the ship was not in motion. They were in essence getting ready to
um
unload all the cargo.
that's
It was
shitty.
anchored.
Hmm.
So it's water under the bridge. So with that kind of TPK or close enough, we just rolled up new characters and we're moving on. So that's how you handle a
Things
TPK.
to
Roll up
do.
new characters and move on, right? All right. So, but what if you only have a single character death, or maybe two, right, at a given time? How you handle that? So
True death.
okay, so let me ask you that. In fifth edition, how do you die?
You go unconscious and you have to fail 3 death saves. So you roll, if you get a d20. If you roll over a 10, it is a save. If you roll under a 10, it's a failure. If you get attacked while unconscious, it is an automatic failure. So if you get 3 fails, your character dies. That's it.
And if you
If
get
you
it,
get
if you get a
three
save,
saves, then your character goes back up to 1 hit point
okay,
and you're like stabilized.
gotcha. Okay, but it doesn't need intervention from anyone else or anything else.
You can do it on your own. I have a couple people who have like stabilize as a cantrip or as a bonus action or as a spell
Right,
where
but
they can like,
that's not necessary though.
no.
Okay,
Yeah, so like if you were by yourself in a cave and you got smacked by a bugbear and you died and the bugbear left you alone and walked away, you could do the saves by yourself
okay.
and you could either come
So
out of it with 1
and
HP or die.
you're rolling for that every round that you make a roll.
Yeah, once per round.
Okay,
Yep.
so potentially it could go essentially really 6 rounds, right? You could, or yeah, 'cause you could have fail, fail,
4,
and then 5 rounds, and then 3 successes.
5. Yeah.
Okay, or you could be dead in 3.
Yeah. It's
Okay,
just up to the
yeah,
dice.
yeah, okay,
Roll of fate.
okay, all right. But there are lots of ways to not die in fifth edition.
Oh, so many, which is why I have hoinked the difficulty.
Revivify,
Conquered the difficulty.
revivify sounds very common from what I
I
sense.
haven't seen it yet, and I've talked about this before as well. In Strahd, there are ways to bring people back that is just more than revivify. There are other scrolls or other spells or other people that could do it in like a mystical, magical kind of way. The only problem with coming back in my campaign is you get indefinite madness. Um, Being on the other side and then coming back into a haunted demiplane gives you like crazy, and so then you come back crazy. But
Would you come
in
back?
regular D&D, you don't.
Would you come back with a certain level of insanity, even with magical intervention like revivify or resurrection or something like that?
In Strahd, yes. In
Hmm.
Strahd, you always, if you get brought back from the dead, no matter how it is, if you become undead, you still get that insanity.
Hmm.
And the insanity table in the DMG is ridiculous. It's a character flaw, and it goes into your character flaw, and it's how you have to act now. It forces the
Yeah. See,
player
as a
character
player, I'm not
act
sure. I'm not sure
differently.
how I would like that
I
because
asked them if they were okay with it, and they're all for it. They're all
I
like
mean, I'm
theater
okay
kids,
with
I
character
guess.
death, and I'm okay with resurrection or raised dead or reincarnation or something, but that unto itself should not make me insane.
It's a Strahd specific.
Yeah,
In
I
regular
know.
D&D, if we weren't playing Strahd, you would just come back and it'd be fine.
So, okay, so speaking of Strahd specific things, something you said to me at your session zero has stuck with me and probably forever will. Okay? As we're talking about character death, you had asked your group, hey man, Strahd's a really rough campaign. Like, it's tough. Are you okay if your character dies?
Some people, especially for 5e, they're just so used to their character not dying.
Well, it wasn't really my point, but yeah. Oh, you know how I feel about that. So I definitely have my issues with
They
that.
get butthurt. I don't.
But one of your players said, yes, I have an issue with this. I don't want my character to die.
Well, they
So,
were outvoted.
okay, then I misunderstood. If that player was outvoted, then so be it. Then as a
So that,
table,
yeah,
character
I
death
didn't
is
do
on the
it.
table. I thought you had said that that player
No,
said, no, I don't want my character to die, and you were making the exception or exclusion for that player for his character to not die.
I told them. I said I will attempt to not kill all of you. I said, but if it happens, it happens. And everybody was like, yeah, okay. And I was like, if everybody else is okay with it, I'm gonna try not to intentionally be a dickbag and kill you on purpose, obviously. I said, but this is a rough campaign. I said, if you guys go into the wrong spot, if you guys do something stupid, you're gonna die. It's just gonna be what
So,
it is. And one player was like, I really don't want my baby to die. And I'm like, well, it's gonna happen if it happens. And I said, start thinking about other characters. And he has like three different options because it's just what he likes to do, and I guess he didn't realize it's what he likes to do until like a couple months ago, where he's now like blown it into the group chat. So it's
okay. Oh, so those are different characters he's working on. Okay. All right. So
there's a bunch of different
what
characters
I
he works
hear
on
when
now.
you say that though, what I hear, and I caution on this, is I'll try not to kill you. That's the way that's stated. That sounds very adversarial. That's
Oh, that I'm the bad guy.
that DM versus player.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
don't think they think that. I think I just warned them, like, hey, sometimes the campaign's just
well,
rough,
see,
and I
and I
understand.
say that well because that's what it sounds like, but because I'll try not to kill you, which makes me think that you'll make an effort to help keep them alive, which goes along to I don't want to die. And also, one of our players from Tuesday night just started or just did character creation, had their session zero for Daggerheart, and he said the DM had told them, "I'll make every effort I can to make sure your character doesn't die in the game." Yeah. Well,
No,
and
I didn't promise that.
well, I know, but there are some parallels there, right, between what you're saying and what that DM said. That I'll try to keep you guys alive, but if you screw up, you screw up. But so I
I'm not
just
going to intentionally honk the all of the combat levels to extreme and see how you guys do. I'm not going to do all that because there is a way for me to do that, and I could, but I'm not going to. I'm going
okay.
to run the campaign like a normal fucking person and
So
not like I'm playing advanced D&D.
what do
Not
you
actual advanced,
um
but
so have you had to deal with a single character death? Like a real death,
uh
like dead where we failed our death saves or whatever, we're dead.
not yet. No.
Okay. So
I got close. Rachel got close a couple times. Rachel always gets close a couple times because she thinks she's a tank, and then she gets all up in the middle of the front of the line. And she's a paladin, so she's correct thinking that, but they're still pretty low level. They're only level 3. So she's like, okay, I'm the big girl. And then she goes into the middle of combat and then she gets wrecked a couple times. Of course, Corey's right there to save her every single time. But I've been trying to target my cleric more, and even my party's like, target Corey. I'm like, you're right, I have to target Corey.
So
Um
on Tuesday, though, we recently had a character death where Alithana, the character, was essentially crushed by a constrictor snake. So I was trying to be
we
descriptive
rolled like
in
shit.
that. Yeah, there's some bad rolls, but I was trying to be descriptive, right? Character death, like it should be dramatic, right?
Yes.
On certain levels, it's traumatic, but we want it to be dramatic and not just, oh, roll the die, oh, you're dead, and just move on as if nothing happened. I think it bears a little more than that. So I was trying to be descriptive as to what I know about constrictor snakes, having worked in pet
I
stores
need
as
to
a
get
kid.
better at
So
whatchamacallit.
so
Uh
with every passing round, she was sustaining more damage as it continued to crush her, to constrict her.
to
And I
death.
remember saying something to the effect of, with as you take your breath in and fill your lungs, as you exhale, it wraps
It gets
itself
tighter.
tighter and tighter, making it more difficult for you to
Mhm.
breathe. And so I felt as a DM, like I felt good that I was doing that. Like I was trying to be descriptive with it, trying to make it dramatic. What I didn't do that perhaps I could have or should have was allowed her like dying word, her last breath. What does Alithana say or shout out to the party? Final words, if you will. And I didn't do that, but it also wasn't the big boss fight. It was kind of I don't want to quite say a
An
random
encounter.
encounter, because it was a snake and you're looking for a big snake. You've encountered snakes, so I wouldn't quite call it random. It kind of went right along with everything else, but it definitely was not in a room kind of combat, and it wasn't the big bad guy.
A themed encounter.
So So, um, what do you do after that, right? And I did reach out to her. I was like, how you feeling about your character's death? And
You
in a
also asked
sense,
me, and then you deleted it, and I was gonna respond to
I did, and I'll tell you why I deleted it. But so I reached out to her to like see what her thoughts were. When I had typed it though, my mind was different than what my words were. My mind was, oh, I need to check on her, make sure she's not all upset. Because
it. Are you
some
okay?
players get very upset with it when their character dies, especially if they're long invested in this character. They've been playing this character for
Yes.
a year, 2 years, 5 years, and the character dies.
Yes.
Man, that's a lot of time and effort in there. Like I am gonna be upset. But this character's only been around for whatever 3 months or something. So her emotional investment is um, not very strong, I don't think, or not very long lived. But when I typed that, that was my thought process, was to kind of check in on her as the player to see how she's doing emotionally about her character death. But then I went back
Mm-hmm.
and I read what I actually typed, and what I typed was just checking in on how you feel about your character death, and that could have been interpreted or read many different ways. So
Mm-hmm.
when I had gone back and reread that to myself, I did not delete it for her. I kind of let it rest and see, and just to see how she would respond to it. And I deleted it for you because I said, "Oh shit, that's not really what I intended to say." And then at that point I realized, oh, it could be interpreted in many different ways. So, but her response was not like an emotional, oh, I'm all upset and so on. I think in part because she has another character that's already lined up. Like she already has
Alba.
the character sheet in hand. She's just going to now play that character and move on.
And
So,
playing Alba, yeah, she knows Alba's character.
right.
She knows how the character thinks.
So as a
She knows you can
player,
just segue into Alba really
so
easy,
as a player, she already had a character to continue. So
just like
in a
Arceus and
sense,
Sono.
right, in a sense, no loss. But
Even though Arceus isn't dead.
her response to, hey, how do you feel about that? She said, I would like to try to get her body out for a proper burial.
Oh,
Okay.
that's what Alba would want too.
So I said, okay. So she's role playing. That's awesome, right? Instead of just leaving your compadre there to rot in a dungeon. I like that. That's role play. So now as a party, you guys got to kind of figure out how to make, if you can make that happen. But some players, some player groups, some tables would want to have that kind of proper burial, or some sort of ceremonial service. Do you allow 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, for the players to role play in the
A
moment, to
death.
role play how they feel about that death. Say some nice
Hmm.
things about her, or when they get back to town, have a beer and they just talk about the character that died, and say
Or like
in essence
awakening.
a eulogy, if you will, right?
Yeah.
So if you're role play heavy, as your group is, and 5e as a whole is, I say role play heavy, social role play heavy, that
Hmm.
that might be of interest to like your group if you had a true character death.
Already got me death certificates. And
Okay, so
I was gonna make a wall of shame.
so
That was me.
he sent one to me too, and I actually filled it out for Alithana. So I have it all locked and loaded, ready to go. So for when the time is appropriate for a death certificate for that character. But um, you know, now some I'm old and rough around the edges when it comes to D&D, first edition, right? I made that clear. And death happens. Like it happens
A lot.
all the time. Okay.
Yeah,
Again,
it's a
unlike
known thing.
5e, where it's very difficult to die, it is very common to die in first edition, especially I'll say in
Yeah,
levels 1 to 3. It's very common, and it's a effing game. Your character
it
dies.
is.
As a player, I say get over it, move on, roll up another character, let's go. There's no need to get
Like
upset. There's no need to get all pissy and leave, and.
there was an example, a great example that I showed to the party, I guess, when me and Dane went down, and it was either between me and Dane, and I even told everybody. Everybody was like, "Oh, we'll save you first. We'll save you first." And I was like, "No, I can roll up a new character. We can't get Dane back. Like Dane's important to saving Arceus. We need Dane. Like save him. I will roll a new character."
So what Julie's talking about is
Oh, I should explain.
the party of whatever 5 or 6 characters that they have. One of them was blinded in a combat, magically speaking, so they left him back in town as they progressed on, thinking he was going to be too much of a burden to the party. So they moved on. When they moved on, they came across an elven village who said, "Hey, I can help you with your blind friend. I'll take care of that on the condition of you bring my little brother along with you on this adventure. You
Nephew?
you just got to keep him alive." So
Yeah.
that's who she's referring to, Dane, that they
Dane.
need to keep him alive so that the other party member would be cured of his blindness. So there was a combat with a harpy where Julie's character went down, as well as this character Dane, who they're kind of entrusted to protect in exchange
Hmm.
for the cure blindness. So when they both went down, Julie as the player said, "Hey man, don't worry about me. Take care of that guy. Work on
Yeah.
him, heal him, first aid, whatever we need to do, keep him alive." Like she said, I can roll up a new character. We can't roll up a new NPC for the benefit of the his family back at the village. So
Yeah.
that's
As much as I love playing Chandrell and being Chandrell, it's up to the how can I progress the story. If I have to die, then that's it. That's how I have to die.
and
And I think that's happened in like the more popular D&D stuff. I think the faux D&D, the celebrity D&D. I'll die for the story, you know. And it kind of happens behind the scenes where the DM talks to the player before it happens, hey, for story purposes, I wanted to see if you were okay with me killing your character. That's another like TPK kind of deal
that's
for story,
I say
but
bullshit on that, but again, that's so freaking 5e
celebrity
because
D&D.
it's all about the story in 5e. It's
It
about the
is
story, the story, the story. It's not about actually playing the game, right?
sometimes, yeah.
It's about the effing story, and it steals all that agency away from the players. I'm not gonna get off on that soapbox. We've talked about player agency versus story, but that is so 5e. Um, so yes, sometimes DMs or celebrity or otherwise will talk to a player first. They said, okay, if we kill your character for the benefit of just not for the benefit of the other players, not for the benefit of the
No,
other characters, just to make the
No,
story nice and smooth and flavorful and colorful.
better. Yeah.
No, bullshit, man. That's my character. I worked on that.
Yeah,
You're not
fuck
going to kill
that.
me just for that. No. So, but with Julie as a player, while her character was down and she couldn't technically role play because her character was unconscious, Julie did the right thing as the player, speaking essentially on behalf of her character, if she could speak that. Hey, man, our story said we were supposed to protect this guy. We made that commitment. So as a group, we need to stick to that commitment. So
Yeah,
it's
forget
still
about me.
kind of put the
Save
party
yourself.
in a conundrum though, right? Do they save their own party member? Screw the friggin' elf Dane, right? Keep our party member alive so we can press on and with full strength. And then with regards to your blind friend, well, maybe you can find another solution for that. There's plenty of time to find a solution. But you said as a player, don't worry about me because I can roll up a new character. Go ahead and save the other guy. But either way, some that kind of situation, it creates a real situation for the group,
And I guess
a
you
real
could
decision to be
say that
made.
it's minorly metagaming, minorly, because I know me as the player know information that Chandra unconscious on the ground wouldn't. But I felt that if I could, as the character, I think Chandra would have. Even though she's true neutral, I still feel like she would have been like, no, save somebody else. Like the way of nature. I'm a druid, so
So I mean,
I'm
I
dust
can
to
see
dust.
how you would say that's maybe a smidge of metagaming, but I would even debate that to say that it's not because
It's
the
teamwork more
it's
so,
teamwork,
but
right? So even though your character's down, the players can still discuss shit, right, and come up with a game
like
plan together,
mechanically.
right? So I don't really see that as metagaming, but okay,
Last night I was playing a campaign, a separate campaign, and I play like a kind of a dumb halfling ranger, and I have an intelligence of 8, so I'm only slightly dumb. And there was a stone, and it was very obviously cursed or evil, and I had to use my little monkey brain, and I just went clean for it, and I ducked and dove through everybody, and I snatched the stone off the pedestal like an idiot. I love when I have to do stupid shit like that, and everyone's like, "Why are you doing that?" And I'm like, "Cause it's what my stupid little character would
yeah,
do.
because I'm dumb,
I
that's
have
why,
to.
yeah.
I have to."
So I'll tell
And
you,
that also goes back to that one shot where he was clunking the pinions in the stone.
yeah, 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 yeah. So,
Yeah.
and actually, his character really wasn't that dumb. The player thought an intelligence of 12 made him dumb, or 10, whatever he had.
Oh
That's
no,
pretty
I
average
think it's
to.
10.
That's pretty average
10 is average.
intelligence. So, all right.
Yeah.
So, um, in 1E, it's much easier to die than it is in
Oh, it is
5E, and it's
very
much
dangerous.
harder to bring that life back once it is gone. So, as an example, in first edition, the first way that's going to happen once your character's dead would be the 5th level cleric spell Raise Dead. And then the only other thing well, and of course there's a magic use a wish
And that's not
spell, but there's
fifth
the
level spell is not fifth level character.
correct. Yep, I was going to
Right.
get to that. Yeah. So it's a 5th level cleric spell Raise Dead or the 7th level, which is the highest 7th level cleric spell Resurrection. So slightly
That's
different
nuts.
in each other, but kind of accomplish the same thing. And of course the magic user wish spell would accomplish that as well. So what level cleric do you need to be to cast these two spells? So in first edition, that 5th level spell Raise Dead, the cleric needs to be a 9th level cleric. To cast the resurrection spell, the 7th level spell cleric, you need to be or find a 16th level cleric.
Oh my god.
So a 16th level cleric, hell, that's not even on the chart as to how many experience points you would need. Let me see, 11,
So
12,
many.
13, 14, 15, 16, 2, 4, 5. So you need roughly 2 million experience points to be 16th level cleric.
Oh my god.
2
The
million
Pope.
experience points to cast resurrection. So,
Need to be the Pope.
assuming you find a cleric to cast that, well, first of all, you know how difficult that's going to be, but assuming you
Yeah.
do, you know how
The
expensive that would be
components. Yeah.
to do that?
The spell components on its own. I bet you the spell components for that are
And
ridiculous.
even the raised dead, a ninth level cleric has to have no less than 225,000 experience points. That's going to cost you some money too.
Mm,
I'm guessing off the top of my head, I'm guessing between $10,000 and $20,000 for these gold pieces for these spells. And
the
that's
body parts
assuming you
or
get
organs
your dead compadre back to that
out
spellcaster in a quick enough time that it can be
out of the
done,
dungeon.
and they're all together in one piece and so on. So it can be done. It's not easy. As a player, when I was a kid, I did have one character, like one of our core party members, go down, and I remember it cost me 35,000 gold pieces for resurrection. We had it, but 35,000, I think it was, for resurrection.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
I'm not sure how the hell we found the cleric, but yeah, we did.
That's
So,
crazy.
unlike 5e, where you can just, hell, you might find a revivify scroll just hanging around somewhere.
I feel like it's loot that is going to be in a pretty crazy location, like a pretty high level location. I don't think you're going to find it just at some guy's house
I
in the
don't
middle
know,
of the
Julie.
woods.
I found one of those scrolls in Mines of Fandelver.
Where was it?
I don't know, but I remember I found that. I'm like, what the hell? Revivify? I'm like, what the hell's that? I'll take it.
I'm gonna
So,
look. I'm gonna Google it.
all right. So let's assume for a moment that the character has died for real. We're past death saves. We're past our negative hit points. We're past a healing spell or something, and the character really is dead. What do you do for that player? How do you handle that? The campaign's still going on, right? The module's still going on, but your character's gone, not your player character. So what do you do?
Oh, it's in Cragmaw Keep.
Oh, you're looking it up?
Yeah. So I guess it makes sense for it to be in Cragmaw Keep. Let's say it wasn't a 12-person party. Like, let's say I actually had a normal fucking party. Um, that's right before you would have found it in Cragmaw Keep. You would have saved or killed Gundren, which you guys saved him. You guys ran an owlbear into the fucking room and saved him, or past the room, and everybody was chasing the owlbear, and you guys managed to kill the doppelganger and kill the bugbear, the leader of Cragmaw Keep, and save Gundren. You guys found the scroll in the Cragmaw Keep's leader's bedroom. He had an open chest in his bedroom, um, and that would have then gotten you guys to Wave Echo Cave. So having a scroll of Revivify for brand new players, because that's who that campaign is for. Very brand new players. Like that's a starting campaign. To then give them a scroll to then go into the main dungeon where there's a spectator and a flame skull and a ochre jelly
Mm-hmm.
uh in a maze, and where there's the wizard himself in there. And I made the spectator nice to you guys. He wasn't supposed to be. And that's a mini beholder. He's supposed to have been a mini beholder, and you guys should have fought the shit out of him. But you guys were murdering everything. So I said, he can be an NPC and make it fun, and he could be a little bit of a psycho. And you guys really enjoyed it. But I think I agree with why they put it in there, because it was supposed to be for brand new to D&D players. A group of 4 brand new to D&D players to then go into the
Okay.
final dungeon
Okay.
with an
Now,
accident scroll,
so
an
if
oopsie
they're
scroll.
if they're truly new players, or that's the intention, then I can understand that. Now,
Yes.
with having played before, even if there were only 4 characters, 4 or 5 characters, my player experience would have said, yeah, bullshit. I'm not wasting this spell on a first level character. Sorry, man, you're dead. I'm saving this for later.
Right. And so for if you're playing, and I guess that's at DM's discretion if you want to keep it in there or not. And that would also go down to DM prep, because then you could be like, I have a group of veteran players. We're playing this for shits and giggles. We're playing this for nostalgia, whatever we're playing this for. I'm playing this as an entry campaign to another campaign. that takes place on the Sword Coast. Whatever, I'm gonna get rid of it and just maybe put it in for value. Um, the scroll of Revivify in value is a diamond, a 300 uh, gold piece cost diamond. The scroll itself is worth way more because it is a written scroll
Hmm.
that anyone can use. The components are like a 300, a really nice diamond. So maybe instead of a scroll of Revivify, you shove a diamond in there or a handful of gems.
Okay, yeah, yeah, okay, I get you. I get you. All right, my question stands to you, Julie. What
Tangent.
do you do when that character dies? How do you handle that player at that point? What do you do for that player?
I agree with what you did at first with Alithana. Hey, you okay? First character death, huh? How you feeling, bud? Stuff like that.
Because she
For
is a
my
brand
campaign,
new player. She's never played before.
she is. She's very new. Um, for my campaign, it would just be like, haha, I killed you guys. But because it's set up, we set that up that way. It was at the beginning, hey, you guys are gonna die. Which is kind of how you said it for Wani as well. Hey, Wani's hard. You guys are gonna die.
All right, but
The
all
set expectation.
right, what do you do? Does that player go home? What
No.
happens?
Yeah, so we already had the character for Alithana, we had Alba.
Hmm.
So she just became Alba, which is a really good point to your having playable NPCs in the party to flesh the party out, because then they're growing NPCs with the rest of the party just in case somebody dies. But let's say you don't do that. Let's say they die, and then they have to make a new character. And then you have to figure out how to weave the character into the story and how to get them to be accepted by the rest of the party.
Okay, so
Um,
therein lies, or there we go back to story, story, story. Do you do that like you said, weave them back in the story, which I kind of like that idea, but if you're in the middle of
mhm.
a dungeon crawl, that makes it very difficult to weave them back in. So some will argue that, hey man, we just need to drop them in. The next room they go in, they find the character, or the next
Oh
combat, this
yeah,
character comes in from behind and helps them out, out of nowhere, and you come up with a reason as to why. But
got sent by somebody.
so
Um,
do they?
I have a couple of paladins who worship the same god or went to the same temple together. They've role played that together, and so if one of them dies, they both have like a fail safe to like send out like a help beacon, and then someone will come in as a help. But
All right, so
mm,
if I don't know what character it is, but if Corey's character dies, DOA,
mhm.
we're past death saves and so on. What do you do for Corey? Does he roll for a new character and he just start then? Does he essentially sit out the rest of that game session? Because
Oh, like if he dies in the middle of the game
yeah.
session.
I mean, because
Yeah,
it's one thing is to die in the beginning of a game session. I think should be handled perhaps a little differently than if you die at the end of the game session.
I agree.
You know, so how do you
I
how do you handle that if he dies at the beginning of the game? Like the first little squabble,
like we start in combat or the very first
or is the
combat.
very first thing, the first 30 minutes or a 4 hour session is combat, he dies.
Yeah. Um, in Strahd, because again, Strahd specifics. The party would then talk about how to revive him, as how I think it would go down. How can we get Corey back alive again? And then they would just drag Corey along. The only thing is, Corey as the player, I don't know what he would do. Um, if that would be, hey, think about your character while you're sitting there, think about rolling up your character while you're sitting there, or even if a lot of my characters have already discussed their secondary character, so much so that they want me to. I have a couple characters who wanted me to pre-weave their secondary into the environment, even if it's just a mention. Oh, hey, there's some guy playing a banjo off in the corner, and then your character dies, and you're like, hey, I'm the banjo guy, which is very bare bones. But um, so that could happen, and then you could sit there and like make the character or whatever. Um, but that's a hard choice to like finagle. I would have to ask, like, hey Corey, are you okay with sitting out this session and hanging out? Your character just died. I don't have a way for you to come back, or we don't have your character to come back, or you don't have a new character rolled up yet. What do you want to do? Maybe leave it up to them. They probably just my players would probably want to sit because it's
Yep.
all story.
Yep.
They're sitting there for the story. They don't want to miss out on what the fuck
Yeah,
happens.
I agree, and I was going to say that your group would probably be plenty okay with that, because they're really for the a little bit the social aspect, but as much for like you said for the story as a whole. So I think
Hmm.
probably all your plays would be okay with that, at least for the rest of the session, and then week to week you can kind of come up with an idea or a process to make that happen. But if they roll up a new character, 1E, 5E, I suppose, if you roll up a new character the whole party's level 5, let's say, do they come in at level 5 or do they come in at level 3?
Oh, maybe one down, maybe a one single level because one level difference doesn't super make a big deal. 5 versus 3 is a big deal for 5e because at level 4 you get what's called a feat or an ability score
Okay,
increase. You get
so
to pick.
what if the whole party's level 4, you die, and now I come in at level 3?
Yeah, that's what I was like, and so that's like something. And maybe they gain their fourth level that during that session because I do milestone. I don't do
Right,
experience.
right, right. So my thought process
Maybe they earn it that one session.
is the character should not come in at the same level that they left at, or the player's character shouldn't come in at the same level that that they left at. So if my character died at level 5, I would not expect my new character to be level 5. And my simple thought process on or my thought process on that is simple. If I come back at the exact same level, then there's no consequence, so to speak. There's no I don't want to say a penalty, but
Hmm.
it reduces the risk, right? And there's no risk, no reward, no reward. Why am I playing? I'm not having fun. So if I
Right.
know
It kills the
if I
fun.
know I'm going to come back as essentially the same thing, then man, I'm going to play balls to the wall. If I die, no big deal. Roll it up. I'm just going to kind of continue,
Hmm.
you know. But if I
But
know,
if
oh
you have to
shit,
work for it,
if I
you're almost
died,
prepared.
I'm going to come back a level or two lower. Now I'm going to bust my ass to kind of catch up. I don't want to die and be at that handicap compared to the rest of the party.
Maybe I can do experience when I have one player who died, and I can make them experience points because then they'll gain the level via experience because that's what they're doing. They've missed experience.
Well,
So the one player who dies could go to experience when everybody else is milestone until they make it back to the party, and then they go to milestone.
yeah, I think I understand what you're saying, but I think that would add a level of complexity to the for you as the DM to the game that everyone all 7 out of your 8 characters are using this system, and you got one guy who's using a different system to level up. You know,
And I could make them keep track of it instead.
um, but I have to say I don't like the idea that you said of oh I'll bring him in one level less, but within that next session they'll be leveled back up. It defeats the purpose of coming in at a lesser level, really.
It may be session or two,
So.
depending on
Um,
what's going on. If it's a full like role play session, then ain't shit gonna happen. You're gonna stay the same level that you are. You know,
Right. So I know you like the milestones versus EXP experience points.
milestone for Strahd is better because there's just so much fucking combat.
So I think that well really and if that one character was one level less than everyone else for the whole rest of the campaign, is it really going to break anything even for that character? Probably not.
It
If
depends
any,
on how the character feels about it. Depends on how good of a sport the character is. I mean, the
the
player
player, right?
is.
So
If the player's a good sport, then sure, they understand. They're an adult. They agree.
they
If they're
and
not, if they're not a good sport,
and
they might
just
cry and
like having some
bitch.
low abilities, it makes it all the more interesting to play that character. So now you have this one character that's like one step behind everyone else, in essence, the younger brother of the party, and that can make things interesting. I don't see
Yeah.
that as a bad thing at all.
My Saturday campaign,
All right. Julie, you're breaking up to the point where, hang on,
Multi-classing
Julie, if you can hear me, you're breaking up and freezing to the point where I'm gonna
and
pause. No, you can't hear me.
class.
All right, so I'm gonna pause the video here for a second and make a minor adjustment on the tech side, see if that helps.
That's
All right,
fine.
so Julie, since you were freezing up and breaking up there, what were you saying now about that? About the coming in that one level, excuse me, coming in one level less than everyone else and trying to get them up to speed?
I was talking about how so I played a campaign yesterday. It's a separate campaign. I'm the player. I'm multi-classed. I am two classes. So for 5e, when you do multi-class, you have to pick. Oh, it did it again.
Okay, well, I still
My
got you.
connection's a little silly. Okay, good. You have to pick which level it goes into. So let's say everybody got a level up. Is it going into my class A or is it going into class B? And so I am actually behind everybody else because I have 2 levels and 2 levels. I'm not 4 levels. Um, and at 4 you get the feat even in 2025
Hmm.
D&D or 2024 D&D. And I was like, "Where's my feat?" And I was like, "What? Where did it go?" And then I was like, "D&D Beyond sucks." And then I was like, "Oh wait, I suck. I am multi-classing. I don't get a feat." And everybody was like, "Yeah, that's how that works." And I was like,
Oh.
"Fudge."
You got me thinking though about multi-class, even in 1E, as to what do you do with the experience points? Normally we split that half and half, but I'm wondering
It's
how.
up to the player.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, I'm wondering how I feel as the GM about letting the player decide how they want to divvy that up.
That's how you do in 5e when you multi-class.
I think I kind of like that idea. I'm gonna have to think about
Yeah.
that.
So like I'm
Huh.
ranger and rogue
Huh.
because I have a criminal background. So I took rogue after I was a ranger. And I got the good stuff for rogue now. I'm level 2, so I have the sneak attack and the bonus action hide and all that stuff. And so I think I'm gonna put my new levels just all into ranger because I got wanted out of rogue.
All right, so Corey's character dies. He rolls up a new character. He's going to come in one level less than everyone else. How long he
Hmm.
stays one level less, you know, whatever. But he comes in a level less. I said I think is what I'm hearing as from you as to how you would likely to handle that. I know for me, you'd be one, maybe 2 levels less, depending on a re-roll, so to speak. But then the other question is, especially if you're higher levels, let's say the whole party is level 10. Okay, I'll even put it in 1E terms for you since you know how difficult it is to acquire stuff in 1E, right?
Hmm.
There's not a magic shop down the street. Potions and
Mm-mm.
spells and magical gear is not easy to come by.
Mm-mm.
Um, so let's say you guys are level 5 and you've acquired magical armor, you got a weapon, you might have a scroll or a wand or something, right? You got some gear.
Pendant,
And
a
then
brooch,
you die, you roll up a new character, you come in one level behind. What kind of gear do you have? Do you get magic shit
standard.
just because?
No, unless your party got took it and they're all holding on to it.
Well, if the party then has some stuff and chooses to give it to the new character, that's one thing.
Right.
But does that new character come out the gates with what kind of gear? Where if you're creating a new character, do they have more money to spend when creating that new character for gear? Do they automatically get certain gear, or do they automatically come in with certain magical items?
Right.
I mean, how do you kind of keep that fair? Because
In 5e, you don't start with new shit or magical shit. You definitely don't. Unless it's like I have one player who started with a silver dagger, but that's for story.
but even that's not magical. So,
No,
but
it's just silvered.
but like if you reason it out, the whole group is fifth edition. The whole group is fifth level. You, Julie, your Chandrel died at 5th level, so you roll up a new version, so to speak, of Chandrel, a new character. You come in at level 4.
Mhm.
If you're a 4th level adventurer, you probably would have acquired some stuff though over those years of adventuring.
Well, and you gave us like starting. We got a starting magical item to help to balance it out a little bit, and so maybe I would get two starting magical items
Right,
because I'm a
right, and
fourth
that's
one.
kind of what I'm getting at because, you know, you have 3, 4, 5, 6 levels of experience. You would have amassed some sort of equipment. You would have amassed
Something
some sort of money. You would have amassed some sort of contacts throughout your life, throughout the cities you've traveled to. So,
dungeoning.
how do you? I mean, and I don't think there's a cut and dry answer on that, but it's food for thought. How do you handle
Up to
that,
DM.
right? Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
okay, maybe instead of one, I get two or three. So my general rule as the DM, my goal for the players, or for the characters, excuse me, my goal for the characters is one tangible magic item per level. Tangible being not scroll, not spell or not potion, not scroll, something more tangible.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
equipment based, gear based, weapons,
Mm-hmm.
armor, things like that. So and I think you're kind of starting to see that a little bit with our party on Tuesday night. As the party is advancing to level 2, you guys are amassing per character one or two
Stuff.
items, a small item and like a major item. Alithana had magical chainmail, which has now been passed on to the other character.
Album. And her
Um,
choker.
and the choker, right? So
Mm-hmm.
she had those two. She'd started with the choker. She acquired the armor. She was, I think, at level 2, two items, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
that's been shared now with the other character. But that's kind of my goal for the characters.
I'm level
And
2 with 3 items.
and sometimes it'll happen. Sometimes you might be an item short. It's just an approximation or an average. But working with
Mm-hmm.
that premise, if I'm rolling up a new 4th level character, should I get 4 magic items? And if I
3.
do, are they going to be more smaller token type stuff, like a potion here, a potion there, or something kind of silly like, oh, I have this really cool blanket, magical blanket. When I go to sleep at night, I'm safe.
Or you
I
get an
can't be
extra,
attacked or something like
yeah,
that. And
extra point to AC.
not real like combat like armor, weapons, more useful stuff. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's again food for thought. It's food for thought. But with any of those, I'll say lesser magic items, not armor, not weapons, not a magical wand kind of thing. The lesser items like that blanket, more utilitarian. Those can be all the more interesting as to how you use that. Because once you start thinking outside the box,
Creativity.
those non-traditional +2 longsword and +1 chainmail armor. Once you get past that stuff, the stuff that everyone knows how to use because you just put it on my stat sheet and it's done. You're not really using
Mm-hmm.
it per se. The creativity is where that really comes into play, and you can come up with some really cool shit on how to do stuff. So, case in point with creativity, I know you probably haven't watched it yet, but the ladies on Sunday night came up with a really creative way to utilize
Oh, Artie told me he spoiled it.
told me came up with a really creative way on how to use entangle when you're 100 feet underground and there's no vegetation to raise up to entangle.
You bring a buddy.
You bring a
You
potted
wall
plant.
E
You bring a
a boot.
potted plant with you. Yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
a plant in a boot.
That's how one of the girls came up with it. It's like, oh my God, that's a fantastic. I mean, I hadn't thought of it. I was like, that's a fantastic idea.
I'll roleplay that I'll steal Alba's boot or Alithana's boot in remembrance of her.
And you can use that as a
A
pot.
plant, a plant. Yeah. Yeah, like Wally.
Yeah.
Have a little plant friend. I don't know how you'd carry it around with you and he wouldn't get damaged, but
Oh, you mean a potted plant?
yeah.
Well, I think what they had done was they had acquired like a clay pot or ceramic pot. And of course, it doesn't need to be big. I mean, it can be the size of
Oh yeah,
my
little.
bottle, right? And then they venture on out, and you just need to fill it with soil and a plant before you intend to use it. So, as they in this case, they're playing the Keep on the Borderlands, and they're in the Valley of the Caves of Chaos. So all they need to do is walk into the valley, and before they walk into the cave, fill it up with some dirt, put a plant in
Oh.
there, and then they have it.
It's not an existing friend. I thought they were keeping a plant alive,
Well, they
like a long-term friend.
no, 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 no. And then like even at that, I was thinking, well, they don't. It's going to entangle from where that plant is. So
Not
they're gonna
from
need to
where
kind
they
of
want it
throw
to be.
that, and
Throw
then
it.
that's going to be the starting point because you can't start from nothing. So if the cave is empty and there's no vegetation, I have my plant here. I can't entangle way over there, so I'm gonna have to throw that plant, that potted plant, which might break the pot, and then cast entangle from there.
So if it's in a boot, the boot won't break.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Stealing a boot.
So, but again, kind of coming back to creativity on how you can use items in a non-traditional sense, getting back to those magic items that you might start with, those lesser magic items that you might start with when you're creating a new character after your character death.
Well, and like I have, even though this is more of a like a standard, it's on my character sheet and done. I have the sticky bullets, the big sticky accuracy bullets. If I had to, I could use that in a non-combat. Like let's say we have to like hit a rope to knock down a bridge or something like that. I could throw a sticky bullet on it and increase my chances of hitting the rope.
Correct? Or even to the
Yeah.
point where if you need to like identify someone in a crowd, if you throw it and you hit them with that, now they're identified. They have this like this magical glowing target on them that everyone can see.
Yeah.
Hey, go get that
Running
guy.
yellow.
As the guards are chasing him, into the crowd. So,
He has a
so
target on his back,
yeah,
literally.
literally has a target on his back. So yeah, so you get creative, and that's really where the fun in the gameplay comes in for me. It's other
Hmm.
and getting away from the typical mechanics. But all right, so a character dies. You're saying Corey's gonna roll up a new character, and he's gonna be down a level. Um, I'm
Whether
a
that's the one that we already talked about, or if his session zero happens during the rest of the gameplay. That's what he's doing for the rest of the game. Is his session zero
so yeah. So if if
is
if
up to
his,
me,
if his character dies
I
early
guess.
on in that
But
game session, right? While keeping an ear on the rest of the game, he can then take the rest of the time to kind of create his new character. And then it's just a question
his
of
session zero happens
how
then.
quickly and how will the DM integrate that character into the story. So if you
Back into it.
are 3 levels deep in the dungeon, you guys are 2 levels deep on Tuesday. If you're 2 levels deep in the dungeon, the character goes down. That player's only character. They roll up a new character. How do we insert them? Do we just say, "Hey, man, she came to save the day of the next combat," because you guys need that character. You need that the mechanics of the reinforcements.
Hmm.
You need the strength in numbers. Um, so I think it depends what's going on in the campaign at the time the character goes down and really where in the session that happens.
At
Because
discretion.
if it's early in the session for us on Tuesday, right?
Hmm.
It's early in the session. You guys are 2 levels deep in this dungeon. It's not like you can go back to town and you meet her in the tavern kind of thing, right? Um, it's not like you're going to be running into NPCs that you've encountered previously along your travels. I mean, the likelihood is really zero. So it's not like you said, "Oh,
Hmm.
she was the guitar player who's now 2 levels deep in this dungeon." Doesn't make sense.
In the
So
dungeon. Yeah, how? Why? How?
how do you quickly insert that character once the character is created, for the benefit of the party to get that player kind of up and running? So I think depending where you are in that particular session, where it kind of makes sense, if you will, to insert that character in the campaign,
Hmm.
and also your player group as well, because like you said, some player groups are very heavy on social role play, so they may not mind waiting a session or two in order for that new character to kind of very organically fit into the
Fold
storyline.
in.
You know,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
don't want to say to each their own, but these are all things that need to be considered by the DM when having to deal with character death and reintroducing a character or introducing that new character for that player.
And their individual play styles and all that jazz.
Yeah, I mean, all that needs to be taken into some consideration. The one thing I will caution, for me, or not caution for me, but I caution for me, um, the new character should not, and the way I play, will not start at the same level because otherwise, again, there's no risk, right?
It's not
Um,
worth it.
So
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
going to
yeah.
start
It's not
one,
fair.
depending, you're going to start 1 to 2 levels below that, below the average or what the rest of the party
Mhm.
is. And the other thing, shit, you had said something. I don't know. I lost my thought. I lost my thought.
No, no.
It happens because you said something. I was going to respond to what you said. What did you say? What was the last thing you said?
Individual play styles.
Oh, no, yeah, yeah, you did say that. But no, you said, oh, you would check with the player to see if they were okay starting 1 level less. I don't. This is one of the times when I'm going to say again, as the DM, I don't. That's not a choice. You as the DM, you
Oh,
make
you tell
you
them.
make that
Yeah.
ruling. You're the referee. You said this is the way it's going to be, and this is the way it's going to be. Now, this goes, what I think you said a minute
I
ago.
agree with
This
that.
kind of
That's
comes in.
probably better.
This comes into session zero. These are things. This is something that should be discussed during session zero, and
I
therefore
didn't.
there
I
shouldn't
forgot.
be any question
I didn't think about it.
when a character dies, what's going to happen for that player, if their character dies. Something to discuss at session zero. And I don't think I discussed
Or
that
zero
at
point
my
0.5.
session zero either. I don't think I may have verbally, but I didn't have it in my notes. So with that said,
I didn't
Julie,
either.
that's going to be our next topic here is going to be session zero, what it is, what do you talk about, why you have it, and can you do it?
0.5.
Can you do it again, right? Can you have another session zero in the middle of the campaign? Short answer is yes. So,
Yeah.
any closing words, Julie? Since I've been monopolizing the conversation here, because I had why? Let me tell you why.
No, I feel like I talked a bunch. No,
Because I have
I
notes.
talked a bunch.
I took notes. We are
It's blurred.
unscripted.
It's
We
okay.
have no script. I did take some notes because I forget shit, and that way I can talk and sound like I know what I'm
Yeah, I
talking
don't got
about.
nothing.
So, all right. So,
Top of my
I'll give you the
hands.
last word, and then I'll stop recording, and then we'll kind of start again, and we'll talk about session zero. So you have the final word.
Um, I guess just going back over like how to handle a TPK and is it really what you want to happen kind of deal. If you can like get out of it, if your player's okay with it, all that fun jazz, and then how to start again after it happens is definitely something to consider. All of course typical DM styles and even generational. If you're playing an older system, that older system doing the thing versus the newer system doing the thing and how to handle that. I guess you and me really talked on how mine is definitely story based, and yours is definitely more mechanical based, and how it affects gameplay. It's very interesting to discuss, of course. I also don't think you monopolized. I think my connection was really bad a couple times, and I couldn't. But that's all I got.
All right, that's the final word. That's going to wrap up session or episode number 10 for Roll for Mastery, and we'll be back in a week, and we're going to talk about session zero. So you guys have a good night, have a good week, and we'll see you in 7 days.
Boop boop. Goodbye.
Oh no, there we go. Oh shit. Hang on.